Let's see. We're live. Hey, everybody.
Yay.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Indy, and the gentleman right over there on the other side of that big IGB logo, that is Mr. J. Powell, and this is Indie Game Business. And we are talking about the report that came out, State of the Game Industry 2020, presented by GDC, where they surveyed 4,000 developers and asked them a bunch of questions like, you know, what's your favorite MMO? And no, they asked them like, what, you know, like what platforms was your last game on? What platform is your new game on? Are you gonna be on the PlayStation? That kind of stuff. And so we're gonna talk about it.
I'm actually impressed that 4,000 people filled out the survey, because I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like ridiculously long. I mean, it's crazy long.
We've already got one question in the chat from Pseudo Shoutout. How do you afford to live, but also a ticket to GDC? Yeah, you don't. What you do is you get a tent, and then what you have to do is you have to start a blog and write a bunch of blog articles the year before GDC. And then when you go to GDC, you say, hey, I'm pressed, and then you get in for free.
That there is a I want to say misconception that San Francisco has a large homeless problem. Those people you see on the street aren't necessarily homeless. Those are developers that can't afford to get a damn ticket and a hotel. That's what it is.
That should have been a question asked on the survey for sure.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's always interesting when this comes out, because you do get an unfiltered, anonymous look at what everyone's doing, and there's some interesting points in here that we're going to go through. But, you know, along the lines, if you've got questions along the way, by all means, let us know, pop them out, and we'll answer them along the way. But let's just kick in. The first question they asked was, on what platforms was your previous project released?
And you know what pisses me off about this whole thing? They don't have it like in any kind of order. It's all just random, like Xbox 20%. They don't have it like in a graph order. I don't have OCD, but if I did, it would be killing me.
It needs to go from biggest to smallest, right?
Right, or smallest to biggest, whatever. But yeah, so here it is right here. I've actually got it up on the screen, TJ, so people can see it.
I can stop moving around my tabs.
Yeah, when we asked respondents what platform the last game was released on, the majority, 54% said PC, 40% said mobile, 24% said PlayStation 4 or PlayStation Pro, and 21% said Xbox.
All right, so what stands out to you there?
That PC is rocking it again?
Yes.
PC and mobile, I mean...
You've got more developers who released things on the Macintosh than released on the Twitch.
The Twitch
On Switch.
Yeah.
I hadn't had enough coffee yet this morning.
Oh, on Switch, I see.
Yeah, it's like 15% of the developers that they asked said they'd release something on Mac, but only 12% said they had released something on Switch. And it doesn't even go up that much, because the next question is, what are you developing for your current project? And only 17 said Switch, which really surprised me. I thought it would be much higher than that.
Right. How do I see view? Can I zoom out? Zoom. Oh, it's control.
The other big one is mobile. So 40% said mobile for their last platform. Excuse me.
Right.
And it stays pretty much the same. 39% said mobile for the next platform as well. But I really thought that more companies would be developing for the Switch, and you've got 6% that said they're developing for Google Stadia. Why? That's unless Google is financing 6% of the developers in the survey and paying them to do it. I mean, there was a post out yesterday that said, you know, the Stadia has been out for like, I don't know, 60 some days, and it's been 40 some since they had an update on anything from Google. And then miraculously, Google announced something, you know, the games that you'd be able to play for free on the Stadia since then.
There's more developers developing for Linux than there is for Google Stadia. More developing for the web browser.
But still, 6% of 4,000. Somebody do the napkin math on that real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, tabletop games is on there, 2%.
Yeah, you know, 6% is less than like 0.001%, but still, that's a lot of people. So Mac is still there. Linux, I'm hoping this year, as much as I've made fun of Linux over the years, now I have a Chromebook, and I'm like, I want to play my games on my Chromebook. And so one of the ways that you can do that is through Linux. It's not quite there yet. I've been trying to get Minecraft to work on it. It's not doing as well as it should be. But Google is working directly with Steam to get the Steam client integrated into Linux for the Chromebook, and that could be good. So what's the next one? Let me scroll here.
The next one is I'm sorry, I'm just reading about Riot takes its licensing game up in League. They're talking about partnership with Louis Vuitton. Luxury fashion company produces a custom trophy case for the League of Legends world. But anyways, I digress. That's totally something, a different article.
I saw that. Where did that matchup come from?
Hey, let's get Louis Vuitton. Let's get Slim Jim. Snap into a Slim Jim for, you know, I don't know. That's weird.
It's just one of those that I wouldn't have put those two together. I wouldn't have thought that there was a big market out there for Louis Vuitton, whatever, from League of Legends.
Because, like, they're not related to each other. Like, how many people playing League of Legends is carrying a Louis Vuitton purse, right? Or whatever.
Can we see the Venn diagram for that crossover?
That's hilarious.
My son's in second grade. They're doing Venn diagrams. I'm going to have him run that one. It's like, okay, take League of Legends players and Louis Vuitton owners and cross that over and see where it comes out.
Okay, that's funny.
All right.
So what's the next one?
Well, I was wrong.
New products.
It said that it was, which one was your last one? What are you currently developing for? Where the Switch was at 12%. But it says, so the next graph is on which platforms will you be developing your next project? And it's up to 20%, which is.
And PC is down
exactly
4%. PC is down 4%. PC, what did you develop last was 56%, and what are you developing next is 52%. Web browser even went up 11%. Linux, poor Linux, it went down.
But VR headsets went up.
Yeah.
Barely, but you know, it went up. But when you look at what people are saying they're going to do next, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and the Switch are almost like it's 20%, 20%, and 19%.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be more interest in the PlayStation 5 than in Project Scarlet, which surprises me a little bit. I know PlayStation won this generation in the console, but I think Xbox has got more going for it right now than PlayStation does. But at the same time, I mean, God, if you're using Unity and Unreal and you do it right, you can basically just release for all of them anyway. It doesn't really matter.
Right. Mr. Cookie, good morning. Morning. All right, so the next page. Are you developing your next game for next generation platforms or existing platforms? And 34% or NA, 39% said don't know, 34% both existing and next gen, 22 exclusively for existing platforms, and 5% says exclusively for next gen platforms.
And that's because not everybody's got kits, and
Right.
if you're developing for next gen right now, you're in an elite group that has access to this stuff.
I also want to know how they surveyed these people. I mean, like, was it on the GDC? It was on the GDC website, or like people that signed up and said they're devs?
They basically send a email to everyone who went to GDC last year that was a developer, because I get them, and I'm not a developer. But yeah, it's a gigantic email that goes out, like in Survey Monkey or something. Just 5% of these devs are targeting next-gen exclusivity, but a third expect their games to launch on both current and next-gen consoles. That's smart, because you don't want to run the risk of missing that boat on the first launch. Or really, I mean, we're still at the point where you're playing bets, hedging bets on who's going to win and who's going to sell more and all that kind of good stuff. And with everything being backwards compatible going in, I know Xbox has announced that. I'm assuming PlayStation is going to do it as well, but I don't know that for a fact. But that's smart. I mean, go ahead and release on what you know is going to be successful, and then go from there. It said PC remains the most interesting platform for game makers, followed by the PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch. That's for the next question on which platforms interest you most as a developer.
All right.
If anyone's out there and you're developing for PlayStation 5, give me a little bit of insight on why that is so much better than Project Scarlet.
38%. Jeez.
Yeah, there's a big discrepancy there.
I wonder if it has to do with like people the way they get dev kits, or
I don't know. I mean,
37% for Nintendo Switch, though. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
That's more than mobile.
Think about it. There's no risk in that in terms of putting all your eggs in a basket. Yes, the PlayStation 5 and Project Scarlet sound really hot and sexy right now, but we don't know how they're going to sell. I mean, what happens if Christmas comes around and they're selling these things for $600 and everybody's like, you know what, I'm still happy with my current Xbox or PS4, because it's not like we've been 4 or 5 years without a console release. Right. Everybody's got, well, at least Sony and Microsoft have done these incremental, the Xbox One X or the PlayStation 4 Pro. We've had these like half console generations release. Whereas Nintendo Switch, nothing's changing. Their hardware is not changing.
The Nintendo Switch Mini or whatever that is.
It's what?
The Nintendo Switch Mini.
I've got one of those. The Switch Lite.
Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. You can't hook it up to the TV and put it on a big screen, but I don't care. It's I think I mentioned this last time. It is like by far my go-to indie game playing device.
Does it have the same type of controls as the regular Switch? Because they suck.
Yep, but you can't detach them. You can't like pull the Joy-Cons off. Uh-huh. It's literally like an old, it's basically the new DS, except it's single screen.
The new Game Boy? Hey, what's up? Wolfpack Gaming. How's it going, Rich?
So, all right, there's something else on this list, and we'll run through it real quick. It says, which platforms most interest you as a developer right now? Xbox One X is 16%, Project Scarlet 25%, Project X Cloud 11%, which is odd because isn't that basically just the streaming of PC and Xbox games? I don't know why that's a separate.
Well, it has Playdate on here for 2%.
What's Playdate?
I don't know. I thought you already knew what it was, so I was just going to say.
I have no idea what that is. We'll Google that up. So
Google it.
PS4 18%, PS5 38%, PlayStation Now 4%. Again, Why is that a separate line item? The 3DS is 2%. That's way down. Pretty sure the Switch killed the 3DS. The Switch is 37%. Stadia is 19%. Mobile 34%, which is a big drop. Apple TV 4, web browser 10, PC 50. Playdate 2%, Mac 11, Linux 5. VR headsets is up to 27%. 16% AR headsets. This is the one that's interesting to me. Voice-powered games through Amazon Alexa and Google Home, 5%. That is an area where I think a lot of people can do a lot of very cool things, and it's not fully exploited yet.
No. I think there could be, like, if you have a Google Smart Home or Amazon Smart Home or whatever, and you could have a horror game that, like, turns your lights on and off and your TVs and stuff. You know what I mean? It could be like a horror game that goes on over a period of days just to fuck with you. I think that would be awesome.
Wait, what kind of game again?
A horror. Not a horror. Horror. It's like, have you seen it's like a serial
killer. Are we making horror games? What?
Horror games, yeah. And it flickers your lights, big boy.
Oh, I know what the Playdate thing is now. It's that indie console. Okay, thank you, Pseudo Shadow. I appreciate that. Now I know what you're talking. Now I know what we're talking about. That's interesting. It's a GBA with a crank. It's interesting, but yeah, that could be a big one. That could be good. But I mean, and then you got 9% of the developers going into tabletop games too, which I think is awesome as well. It's there's so much crossover now between those. I'm just waiting for these things. I mean, you see them on LinkedIn and Facebook all the time. It's like the last board game you'll ever buy, and it's this, NFC enabled glass computer. I would love that. I would absolutely love to have one of those, but it's one of those that's got to hit critical mass first before it can get out there and go.
You know what? I just don't know if I want to play a game with a fucking crank on it, man. That just doesn't sound
a control device.
It doesn't sound fun. It's like, what is this game? It's charging your batteries. Fucking, you know what I mean? It's charging your flashlight from 1980. That's no. I just don't think that's fun.
My son's got an emergency flashlight that you can crank,
right?
And it charges the battery. Gave that to him when he was like 5, and you want something that had a max battery charged at all times? Yeah, you give it to a 5-year-old and tell him to crank it, and then
I've got one that was supposedly supposed to charge your phone, but it doesn't work for shit.
Yeah, it goes back to that rule of the more shit they add to something, the more likely it is to break.
Right.
So, all right, what's the next one? Which mobile platforms are you currently making games for?
Okay, where's it? Which platforms? Is this a big one? Or okay, Android remains mobile devs' most popular platform through the number of devs, though the number of devs making mobile games is slipping. So 50% Android, 48% iOS, 43% none, and 3% other. Please specify.
What are you doing other? Microsoft?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's like the other, what is it? There's a Google phone, right?
Yeah, but that's Android.
Is that Android?
That's what I have. It's an Android device.
Maybe they're doing it for the fucking old school Nokia phones, like the Tetris and man, Snake. I used to love playing the Snake. Yeah, I used to love playing Snake.
So, I mean, overall, that doesn't surprise me. And we've talked about this cycle before. It's like, PC games get big and then it gets crowded and everybody goes to a new platform, and it was mobile for a while. And now mobile's crowded as all hell. And you got to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in user acquisition. And so the developers are like, I ain't doing that. And they're going back to PC and console. So the fact that Android wins out doesn't shock me. Android is actually the most popular handset tech anyway,
Right.
then the fact that less developers are developing for them doesn't surprise me at all.
Right. Oh, we got a question from Manny Hams on Twitch. Is it, and we had talked about this earlier too, is it viable to focus on a great PC release, keeping consoles in mind when making big design choices, then farm out the console port to a porting focused dev house?
Yes.
Big time.
And one of the things that we're seeing is, because part of what we do is go out and we find RFPs and contract development opportunities for our clients. And in the last 6 months to a year, we've seen a big spike in developers who are actually farming this stuff out as well. So what you have is PC developers who have a good amount of success on PC, on Steam or Epic or whatever, and then they're ready to go to console, but they don't have the internal resources, but they do have the revenue from a successful PC game, and so they're farming it out. So yeah, that's actually a very viable, a very smart way of going about it. And there are actually publishers, I spoke to one of them this morning, who are basically just interested in successful PC games that they can, do the port for, because a lot of these companies will actually do the port for you. Now, you're going to get less of a rev share if they're doing that, but you are going to get released on these other platforms. So yeah, very viable and very smart way of tackling it.
All right, next one. Consoles lag behind PC and mobile when it comes to cross-platform multiplayer support.
So, Father Thunder, no shit.
Yeah. Across which platforms do your games' cross-platform multiplayer features work? So, NA, not working on cross-platform is 63%. 63% of devs. Right.
Well, I mean,
it's a skill set.
I mean, you still got Sony playing the hard ass and not letting everyone do it, and you've also got there's multiple issues that come up in it. One of them is the fact that consoles have auto aim so many times and PC doesn't, but it's still not a level playing field. My son's been playing Overwatch. I love Overwatch. I play it on the PC. He's got it on the Switch, and I enjoy playing games together with him because we play Fortnite, cross-platform like that. But you can't do Overwatch, and I don't know if it's a issue with the tech or if the hardware folks aren't being nice about it, or what it is, but it just doesn't work. But that's another reason why I'm surprised that more companies aren't leaning towards Xbox in this next generation, because they've already got a plan out there to make everything cross-platform between PC and Xbox. But I just work here.
Here's what just baffles me. AR remains the popular answer for what will be the most dominant immersive reality tech in 5 years, but faith in VR is rising.
That's because everybody who has a mobile phone can play an AR game.
Yeah, but AR games just are dumb.
Yeah.
But like AR, how long ago was AR announced? 5 years ago?
I was working on AR stuff 12 years ago.
Right. And it's like, it's the next big thing, and it's never really taken off. I mean, look, you can see a Pokemon standing in the corner and take a picture of it, but it's,
Okay, hold on. I'm going to run some numbers for you.
I downloaded the Minecraft Earth or Minecraft World or whatever, which is basically, you like aim your phone at a table and poop, and then there's like a block, so you're building like with Legos, but it's in Minecraft. You can walk around it, and it's just terrible. It's just not.
I played it for just a little bit.
It's just not fun. It's neat. You're like, oh yeah, this is neat, but then after about 10 minutes, you're like, this sucks. It just wasn't fun for me.
All right, so
Overwatch developers don't support ultra-wide monitors because they think it's cheating. Baffled, said Minskell on Twitch. Interesting. I didn't know that.
That is interesting. But I mean, I'm not saying it's cheating, but I mean, if you can see more of the area, it gives you an advantage.
Right.
All right. So, Indy, without Googling, and as we're talking about how AR games suck, did you see how much money Pokemon Go made last year?
Oh, a bajillions. Yeah.
$900 million.
Almost a bajillion.
And it contributed $250 million to tourism.
All right, so that's Pokemon Go. What about any other AR games?
But that's what people are looking at. That's the reason we've had Minecraft Earth and, well, Harry Potter's done by the same group, but it's people are still looking at it in terms of, oh, look how much money Pokemon Go made. That's just the reality. And it could be, and I agree, you know, it's AR does stand a better chance than VR simply because you don't have to go out and spend $1,000 on a setup for, you know, an AR game. But everybody who has a mobile phone could play an AR game. What we need is more good AR games.
All right.
That's the problem. It's not the tech. It's the fact that, you know, the one idea that everyone had and wanted to play, you know, was done with Pokemon Go.
Well, I mean, and that idea is really like super basic. I mean, what it is you go out walking around, there's a monster, you freaking aim at it, and then that's it. It's just there, right? It's not. It's like the most basic of AR concepts. I feel like it's
actually the same concept I was working on 12 years ago.
Right.
Except we were doing it with like movie theaters and places like that. So you would, we would do a deal with a radio network, basically a radio station, and then set up geolocated objects, not like QR codes. Some of them had QR codes, but not all of them. But you would have to travel to each one of that radio station's sponsors and like grab the item with your phone. And then if you grabbed all the items, it unlocks something for you, and it puts you into a drawing. And so that whole premise of we're going to walk around the real world and grab something hasn't changed. But there's just hasn't been, I mean, let's face it, if you're thinking about a game that you can go around the world and collect stuff, Pokemon is the no-brainer.
Right.
But we haven't had, you know, another really good AR game come through to get people interested.
I mean, that's pretty neat, like where you walk around and shoot zombies and, you know. But I think I kind of feel like, number one, it's Pokemon, right? And it was time for Pokemon to do some kind of big, massive resurgence, you know? And plus, they had a shit ton of money in marketing. And it was just everywhere. So once the hype caught on, all the streamers were doing it. Everybody was doing it, right? It was just like everyone was doing it, and then it kind of faded out. There's still people that do it and like, oh, I'm doing my Pokemon Go, but it just like it goes up and then it's gone, and then it goes up and then it's gone.
So have you scrolled down to the chart that's down below it, where it's showing user spending per year in Pokemon Go for the last 4 years?
Let's see here. User spending.
They had a huge 2016 when it launched. Everybody was excited about it. And then everybody was like, all right, well, whatever. I can't battle my friends, and I've already collected all I want to collect. So, you know, it just plummeted in 2017. And I remember everybody was calling for it to be dead. It's like, oh, Pokemon
yeah, I don't know what that is.
It's over. And no, wait, it was just like the next page down, dude. And then, you know, Niantic, it's like, you know, our Mr. Kukui, and I can never pronounce everybody's handles online. But anyway, it dropped way down, it way down to only $500 million, and then it started going up.
I totally don't. What page was it?
Oh, you know what? I'm lying. I clicked a link.
Yeah, I was like, there's nothing about this here.
Hold on. That one. So it dropped down to 2017, 589 million. And then as Niantic kept adding these features back in, it shot back up. So 2018, it did $816 million in revenue. 2019, 894 million in revenue. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens this year, since for the last several years this was fueling everybody's Pokemon fix, but now we have 2 new Pokemon games. Is Pokemon Go going to continue to grow in 2020 when we don't necessarily, and that's not the only place to go for your Pokemon fix anymore?
I don't know. I never played the original Pokemon, so
this is I beat Shield. I finished Shield, but before that, it was never. I mean, I had never gotten all the way through a Pokemon game, and part of it now is because my son and I play it together. It's one of the reasons we have 2 Switches in the house now. It's so we can, share back and forth, and we can go on the raids together and all that sort of stuff. And next month, they're launching the subscription-based Pokemon Home, so you can import all of your stuff, over from one game to another. So yeah, I agree with you, Trigger. It's going to keep growing. I just want to see how the success of Sword and Shield affects the revenue of Pokemon Go. All right, so what's our next one?
I don't know. I don't remember what page we were at.
Oh, we were on page 9.
Page 9, so page 10.
We're on page 9. Yeah, nearly half game makers are or have been involved in AR or VR development, and current VR devs are shifting focus from HTC Vive to Oculus and its new Quest headset. So the question they asked was, which VR AR platform are you currently developing for? The Vive had 20%, Oculus Quest had 24%, Oculus Rift is 25%. iOS and Vive Pro are at 11%. And then it goes down from there. There are only 8% people developing for Valve Index. But I'll bet you this survey went out before they announced Alex.
Valve Alex?
Yeah. Because that caused a huge spike in Valve Index sales. So still, this still shows the problem with VR. Not only are you spending, $300, $400, $500, $600 on a kit, you've got so much fragmentation in the market.
What I don't understand is there's at the bottom it says 41% are developing for other. What does that mean exactly? Or did they not have the option of we're not developing for it?
They must have had. No, surely they had an option in there. Yeah. Because it says this survey was based on the 48% who said they have worked in VR and AR development. So all of these. No, you're right. It's worth noting that 41% of respondents selected other as an option. The majority of these clarified that they are not currently developing for any VR or AR option. Okay, so they asked everyone, have you developed? 48% said yes, but 41% of that 48% said they're not doing it anymore. So that's a big drop.
That is a big drop.
But I mean, it's not. When you're a developer and you're looking at where to safely invest your money, yeah, VR is still sexy, but at the same time, it's just gigantically risky. I mean, 2 years ago, we could pitch VR projects to publishers and they would be at least looked at. Now there's very few who even want to look at them. There's just too much risk in it for them. So the next question they asked was, which platform was your last game released on? And Vive and Rift took, the gigantic lion's share. 38% said they had released on Vive, 41% said Oculus Rift. PlayStation VR is still lower than I thought it would be.
iOS phone, tablet using ArtKit, 14%.
But I mean, has there been a big breakout iOS
game? No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
No.
Going to the next question while I'll let my assistant in.
Okay. This next question is, which VR AR platform do you anticipate your next game will be released on? That's pretty interesting. 17% say the Vive, 24% with the Oculus Quest, 24% Oculus Quest, and 20% Oculus Rift.
For the next game being
For the
released
next
on?
game, yeah, 24% Oculus Quest. So before that, it was 14%. They last released 14% Oculus Quest, 41% Oculus Rift. So what game do you anticipate your next game will be? 24% Oculus Quest and 20% the Rift. And 17 is the Vive. So that's 44%. Oh, it's choose all that apply. So
yeah,
it can't add them together and just say, oh, it's 44%. 32% are undecided, though, and 20% did the other thing.
Which means they're not doing it at all. So Trigger, says, well, with Steam as big as it is and the Quest in the route it's going, in the route that it's going, there's also much reward to go with that risk. Well, it is. I agree, but that's the whole premise of risk reward. You're either going to, hit it pretty big or you're not. I mean, and when you're not, it's a pretty big drop off. How much is the Valve Index selling for now?
I don't know. That's a good question.
$750 still for the headset, controllers, and Half-Life Alyx. It's still, I mean, that's a very big investment to jump into. So it doesn't surprise me that there's, not nearly as many people going that route.
Right. So the next slide is which VR/AR platforms most interest you as a dev right now, and Oculus Quest is at 39%. 39%. Oculus Rift is at 21%. HTC is way the fuck is down there. HTC Vive is 16%. All the other ones are like, well, except for the Vive Pro, are under 10%. PlayStation VR is at 18%. Windows mixed reality AR headset. Oh, it's at 17%.
But I mean, but if you look at it, Oculus Quest is a hell of a lot cheaper.
Right.
$400, $500 versus $750 for the other one. And Trigger says he has the Cosmos and the Quest. Both are amazing. And the Quest is running Android, which still runs PC games oddly well.
Quest is the one you don't have to connect to a computer, right? Just the standalone.
Yeah. The whole wireless thing has made a huge difference. But I mean, we've got a Vive and I play it, and it's the cables. I mean, yeah, I would love it if there weren't cables on it, but it doesn't really it doesn't bother me that much.
It just makes it a pain in the ass to set up and tear down.
Oh my God, it does.
And it's not really. I mean, all you gotta do is plug in fucking 2 things and then the headset. You know,
but inevitably, every time I do it, and this is why I don't plug it in that often, it's a pain in the ass because something didn't update or something's not connected, and you got to restart 4 or 5 times, and it's just, it's a royal pain in the ass. All right, let's go to the next one, which is very interesting, especially given what we talk about on a weekly basis here. Which services are you using for the release of your next game? More than 25% of the developers are working with a publisher. So 19% said a publisher that has paid us in advance and takes a percentage of revenue. 7% said a publisher that has not paid in advance but takes a percentage of revenue. 11% says an external marketing and or PR agency that we paid ourselves. 36% full-time or part-time internal marketing or PR individuals that we pay ourselves. And 36% says I do marketing myself in addition to help developing the game. So you've got over 70% of those developers who have somebody internal doing PR for them, and they're basically self-publishing.
But it's 20%, almost 20%, says a publisher paid them in advance.
Yeah.
Crazy.
No, that's the way it's always been done.
Right.
And you know, there's still a lot of publishers out there who are paying in advance. You know, not only for an advance doesn't necessarily mean they're funding the game. You know, it means you can do an advance as a guarantee on sales. That's like one of the things that we always ask a publisher for. It's like, if you want to come in, because a lot of these publishers don't want to run the risk of financing it when it might not pay off. They obviously want to lessen their risk as much as they can. So they're looking at games that are closer to being finished. So there's less, you know, risk in there. So they're not necessarily paying to get the game done, but when we go, you know, when we take our clients' games to publishers and they don't necessarily need the funding to come in on the back, you know, we always tell the publisher, you know, we want to see a guarantee of some sort. And, you know, you can do that by forecasting sales or however you want to do it. It's most typically done with forecasting sales. But when a publisher comes back and says, well, you know, we don't want to do that, it's a red flag to me, because, you know, it either means they really don't want to have any risk in it at all, or they're not comfortable forecasting the sales, which you should be able to do as a publisher. If you're going to go pick up a new game from an external team, somewhere along the lines, you had to have done some research into how much money it's going to make you. It's the situations where they don't want to put anything in it at all. And that's where it gets dodgy for developers, because it's like they have no skin in the game.
Right.
If it fails, they're not out much. So you always want to have some sort of incentive in there. I would have thought that now no, actually, I think 25% is a good number when you think about how many games are released every year. But you know what is it? All of these people say they're at least thinking about marketing, so that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, as opposed to recently, I haven't even thought about marketing until like my game's going to be released next month or next week.
It's about marketing at day one.
Yeah.
Day -1.
All right. So where's your funding come from? That's a good one. So we have 51% companies' existing funds, 31% personal funds, and then everything else is like alpha funding, 8% angel investors, 17% external publishers, 7% from the video game platform holder.
Yeah.
Crazy.
No, I mean it gets back to, what we always talk about with exclusivity for these platform holders. If they want these studios to come in and develop for something like Apple Arcade or have an exclusive on Xbox, those platform holders need to be paying up to get it done.
Right.
It's because you're going to have very, very few people who look at iOS and go, I'm going to develop a premium game for iOS because I think it's going to be great. That's a gigantic risk. And so that's why Apple is out there paying for, content and getting it out there like that. 11% is coming from government funds, which is very interesting. Crowdfunding.
They must have got Canadians.
Yeah, exactly. That 11% is completely taken by Canadians.
Yeah.
That's where all of that is coming from. But there's a lot of governments that put in. The UK is really good about it as well. Germany has a lot of funds and stuff out there, government funding that you can tap into as a developer. But yeah, Canada's the one we always see the most.
Canada.
It's crazy money they put towards it, but it's good. It's awesome. We love our Canadian friends.
What's your interest in crowdfunding? Right, that's the next one, or
don't ban me on, dude. Not nice to ban me on Mixer, Justin. We didn't ban you on Mixer.
I did.
Oh. Okay, I must have missed that. So I would have thought that Steam Early Access and alpha funding would have been higher than it was, but it's not. It's 3%. So what is your experience with crowdfunding? 13% says I have worked on a crowdfunded project. 26% said I had not worked on a crowdfunded project, but plan to in the near future. 5% said I have tried to get crowdfunding and not met my goals, which is very feasible. 48% said I have no interest in crowdfunding. And because crowdfunding is tough right now. It's you've got to have that whole big community aspect before you can go out there and be successful at it. And so if you don't have that already, it's tough. It's not like it was 5 or 6 years ago. So the next one, they're talking about business models. So which business models are you using for the current game?
Wait, we got a comment from Joe Paradise here. Joe Paradise says, I feel like crowdfunding is another full-time job, which is difficult to balance with work game dev. Crowdfunding is a full-time job.
It is.
It is big time.
A full-time job. And it's a full-time job before you go with your full-time job. And on this, so the Trisay brothers are actually going to be here on Friday, and they are launching their next crowdfunded game in February. At least they're launching the campaign for it. But, I've seen all the stuff that they've been doing leading up to it. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about with them is, in this day and age of crowdfunding being absolutely ridiculous, how do you do it and you do it successfully? So yeah, Friday, we're going to touch on that actually. So which business models are you using for the current game you're developing? And, their headline is loot box mechanics remain an unpopular method of game monetization. And yeah, it is. But at the same time, I think many times they're just done poorly too. So free to download was 43%. Pay to download was 45%. Ad supported 14%. I actually thought that would be higher. Paid DLC with updates and free DLC with updates. How is free DLC a business model? That's 18 to 17%. Paid item crates, only 8%. Paid in-game currency, 22%. Paid in-game items, 22%. Paid subscription for your individual game, like an MMO, 6%. Paid subscription as part of a monthly offering, which would be like Apple Arcade, Game Pass. You could do Humble in there as well, 8%. Premium tier subscriptions, 4%. That's like Fallout 76. And that one I agree. That's a tough one. When you're going in and you're saying you paid $60 for it, we're not going to have nearly the same amount of content as a true MMO, but we still want you to pay a subscription on top of it. And then other 11%. So paid in-game items, it's difficult because there is still this underboiling undercurrent of, is it going to get some kind of legislative slap? But two, the other thing is they're hard to do right. I mean, it's not an easy situation to go in and say, okay, how do we balance all of this stuff? And a lot of studios can't do it or don't want to do it. And so they just skip it altogether. They ask, are you concerned that subscription services will devalue individual games? What do you think, Andy?
Am I concerned about subscription services will devalue? I mean, it'll be I think it'll be a big shift in things. You know, there's been subscription services around for a long time, so I think the amount of games that are coming out now will devalue what games are for, what games are worth, you know, but
see, and that's the way I see it. I don't see the subscriptions devaluing anything any more than the constant flood of content, you know, games that are coming out are going to do. I think it's interesting that Microsoft is doing day one. It's like if you have one of their game passes, you get their first party games day one. That's interesting because, you know, I'm sure they're missing out on some sales there, but at the same time, they've got subscriptions, and subscription services are consistently one of the most, you know, easy to judge and most lucrative types of revenue that we see. So anyway, they asked developers, and developers, 27% said yes, 28% said maybe, 26% said no, and 18% said they're not sure. So basically, nobody knows.
Right. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
If you are a developer, I think there's a lot of value in going to a subscription service once that peak of sales, you know, has started to drip, or if the platform pays you a bunch of money.
Like putting your game on a bundle site, you know, don't do it right away, but you know, hey, if it's the sales are going down, get it out there.
Exactly. If you can look at your sales forecast and say, I'm going to make 50 grand over the next 6 months, and then somebody else comes in and says, if you put it in this, you know, packet, and we'll give you just 60, 70 grand, do it. Because 9 times out of 10, it doesn't, you don't have to take your game off the market as it is. And so you do have two different types of players out there that are buying it. I mean, it's that whole piracy thing. How much sales are you actually losing when you put something in a subscription service? I don't know. If anyone has done this and they have data on how much their premium game, you know, lost in revenue when it went into a bundle or a subscription service, I would love to talk to you to see, you know, how that went. Hitoshi says the thing about subscriptions is that maybe games with a narrative focus or games that aren't designed to be replayable kind of lose that in an ecosystem. I disagree, Hitoshi. And again, you know, my reference source of one, my son has more hours in Legend of Zelda than anything I've ever seen him play at all. And he would be watching the Let's Play videos, and I'm looking at him going, I don't want to watch it because I don't want to know what happens. But it doesn't faze him. He goes and watches it, but he still goes and plays it. And so, you know what? It's like you still went to see Titanic, even though you know the boat was going to sink. There is a level of enjoyment that comes through playing it. I don't think we lose as many players as we think we do to narrative games in a subscription service, or when they're, you know, played on stream and things like that. You know, you got companies like Atlas, like banning streamers from playing past day whatever in Persona, and I think that's just asinine. I don't think you're losing that much revenue. People still want to play it themselves. So Tech versus Magic, Pharrell made $2,700 on 43 million streams of his song Happy. Same devaluation could happen to us. Yes, I agree. It could, but we're not seeing it yet. There's God knows how many other reasons why that song may have done that. But at the same time, that's not like he made $2,700 on the song completely. He still had the song out there on, for sale on iTunes or whatever option it was. If you have absolutely no revenue coming in for your game other than the streaming and you're making money like that, yeah, that's bad. But, that's not the only revenue. Streaming services, subscriptions, bundles, all of this should be looked at as second tier revenue for developers, unless that platform is paying you a bunch of money. And thank you, Derek. We try to do good content, and some days even I managed to pull it off, but I couldn't do it without Indy. So, all right, what's next?
We are looking at over half the devs hail from North America, and another quarter come from Europe.
So I think that's flawed. I mean, you got to remember, this survey is only going out to developers who went to GDC. And yeah, the majority of people that go to GDC are coming from North America and Europe. I think if you sent the same survey to the Tokyo Game Show, China Star, the one, China Joy, and it's K-Star or something, the one in Korea, you'd see a much better balance, because it's not like they don't have developers outside of North America and Europe. So I think that one's a little bit flawed. Men still dominate game development, but their hold is slipping. Why do you have to call it a hold? Why did you even have to phrase it like that? Anyway, so it's a slight shift. The year prior it was 80% male. This year it's 77% male. Obviously, I mean, I think it's better for everybody involved if we get that a little more balanced. Here's the no shock. Most respondents have spent less than a decade making games. What do we say? If you make it 5 years, that you're a veteran. If you make it more than that, you're crazy. 30% have been in development for 3 to 6 years. 17% have been 7 to 10. 13% 11 to 15 years. 12% 1 to 2 years. 4% under a year. 16 to 20 years, 9%. I am in the 4% group. 21 to 25 years in the industry. Jesus, that makes me feel bad. Only 2% have been in it 26 to 30 years, and 3% more than 30 years. That more than 30 years is, I mean, the industry's been around for 40 or 50. If we go back to like in television and all the stuff.
Pong.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't surprise me, because we get all this burnout and people leaving and crunch culture and all that kind of shit. I mean, it's no secret that if you're a programmer, you're going to make more money programming systems for a bank than you are making video games. People
Right.
don't get into this industry because they want to get rich. And if you do, you need to reevaluate what it means to be rich. The reality is we do it because we love it. And if you don't love it, you're not going to stick around. And 3 to 6 years, that is generally when people go, okay, this sucks. I don't love it. I'm going to go do something else. It's also, during that point that we talked about earlier too, where your life goals and your, what makes you happy changes. If you imagine you get into the industry when you're 21, 22, coming out of college, then 5 years you're 27, pushing closer to 30, chances are you're married, you got kids, or you're in the process of having kids, and you don't want to spend 60, 70, 80 hours a week at a studio. You want to be home with your family. And, I think that's a factor in there as well. How's chat going? I see a lot of things popping up, Andy, but I haven't been reading.
It's good. Derek McNeil said, I have a game on Apple Arcade that was simultaneously released on Xbox as a premium title. The arcade revenue is pretty decent, to be honest. The Xbox unit sales have disappointed. Not sure if that is because the game wasn't a fit for the Xbox audience, or if gamers would rather pay $4.99 for 100 games than $19.99 for one. Hitoshi says, here in Latin America, a lot of young folk just quit when they realize this industry demands a lot of work, and they have their rose-tinted glasses broken. Cargo Cult Gaming, what's up? Welcome.
I think that's true everywhere in the world. That's what I want to know. I want to know where industry they're going to that doesn't demand a lot of work. Can we figure that one out? Because that would be nice. But it is. I mean, you do get a lot of people that come in with those rose-colored glasses. It's like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. It's working in games, and I love games. And then you get into it, and you're like, oh my god, this is. I
hate
hard.
Games.
Yes. I don't want to do this anymore. That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't shock me at all. Most respondents still work either alone or at very large companies. Nearly half saw their company expand in 2019.
Yeah, 49% expanded. 36% stayed the same.
10%. You look at all the news about layoffs and everything, and
1% closed entirely.
Yeah, but I would have honestly thought the contracted and closed entirely would have been bigger. But I mean, at the same time, you got to figure every time one of them closes, those people are going somewhere. The majority of them are going to stay in the industry.
Right.
How many people work at your company? Myself only. Well, see, Andy, this one is almost laid out in order. Does that count?
More than 500 people, 19%. That should be at the top. Dang it.
Well, it's tied with myself only. 2 to 5 people, 15%.
This is laid out in some kind of order, at least. You know what I mean?
Probably. It's laid out in the order of how it was asked. Because if you look at the questions,
laid out in the order of the number of people.
Yeah, I'm sure that's how the tick boxes went on the question. Justin says, oddly, mobile gaming or app building, some are getting some form of success from app builders, as odd as it may be, or even game dev programs for them, while the more advanced stuff built under Xcode and Android SDK or Unreal or even Unity. I don't know. It's interesting that there's that big of a jumps at the end of the spectrum, either between a single studio or 500 to more than 500 people.
Right.
So you add all that together, you got 35% of the people in the industry work at a studio or a company with over 100 people in it. That's a lot. Oh, thanks, Justin. Said that was to go with your easy stuff comment. Flappy Bird was built with only... Are you serious? Flappy Bird only had 7 lines of code? That is like the biggest dollars to code line transition ever. So social media is still a big investment for devs, though word of mouth and storefront promotion are seen as best investment. Word of mouth is not a good investment. Well, I guess if your investment is that you don't have to do anything, then yeah, I guess it is, good return, but oh God, no, don't like rely on word of mouth for your game. It says this year we asked respondents to tell us if they made small, moderate, or large investments of time or money into a variety of discovery methods, from paid advertising to live events to traditional press. Most respondents made small investments into multiple avenues, most commonly social media, 26% made a small investment, YouTube videos, 25%, and email marketing or word of mouth is 24% each. Okay, one, that's not the same. Those should have been different questions. Email marketing is not word of mouth marketing. Medium investments in social media boosting word of mouth were also common with 25% each. But when it came to big investments of time or money, the most common choice was again social media at 15%, word of mouth at 15%, and live events at 13%. The least common choices were mixer streamers. 74% said this form of promotion was not applicable to them, and Twitch streamers. Sorry, Andy, you're not applicable, man.
I've never been applicable.
So I disagree. I think if you're going to be investing in marketing for your game, the Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, Facebook streamer crowd need to be a good target. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out and pay for it, but you need to spend the time and money to get something like Keymailer or Woovit and get your game in front of all of these people. So we also wanted to know how valuable our respondents actually found such investment to me. The big winner seemed to be word of mouth. 20% of respondents who invested in word of mouth said they found it effective for promoting their last game. Okay, word of mouth, that's not something you invest in. That's just something that happens. I think what we should read this is 20% said direct email, because they clumped them both together. And direct email is a wonderful way of reaching out there. And that's why it's so important to get your game a Steam wish list, because once it's on a wish list, every time you drop the, cost of your game, it boosts, everybody gets an email. That's why I get these emails that say, hey, 28 games on your Steam wish list are for sale. So I don't think that's word of mouth. I think that's actually that comes from email marketing. Social media was seen to be very worthwhile. More respondents invested in it than any other form of promotion, but it was more often ranked as slightly or moderately effective than very effective, suggesting it's a common, accessible means of promotion with less potential for big payoffs than storefront promotion or viral word of mouth. Yeah, that makes sense.
But that stuff is also, I don't know if the word is speculative or whatever, because some people are good at social media. They're with this, it's kind of assuming that everyone has the same level of skill when it comes to social media, right? They're not even assuming any kind of skill level, or because you look at some social media accounts and they're terrible, and then other ones are just super interesting and you want to read the posts of it all the time. So I think that's a variable in there that they have not even touched.
Yeah, I agree. Because there's a gigantic signal to noise ratio difference in social media than it is, anywhere else. So Justin says a good example of a good ad was the one they did for Mutant Day Zero. There's a ton of stuff on it. Ton of stuff on it on Facebook. Once release day came, it sold like crazy because there were millions upon billions of people on Facebook and Twitter. So, I'm not a giant fan of Facebook in terms of personal use, but I will say a lot of the viewership that we get for this show comes from Facebook. And the most effective paid advertising we do for the company is actually through Facebook as well. And you don't have to go out and spend a ton of money on it. We spend $5 a day on Facebook ads, and we get a really good return from it. So yeah, I think Twitter is tougher because there's just, maybe I follow too many people, but my Twitter feed is just like fucking ticker tape. going through. It's like I can't get anything out of it.
Right, and then when you refresh it, it's just everything's different.
Yeah. It's I glance at Twitter for like 2 minutes every day, and because it's just like a constant vomit of content. All right, so the next one makes me a little sad. Have you implemented any accessibility features for those with sensory impairment, motor impairment, or other impairments into your game? 48% said no. Come on, people. It's not necessarily that hard to do. You don't have to make everything work with the Xbox adaptive controller. It'd be awesome if you did, but you don't have to. We did a show with Tara, which we lost. And so we're going to have Tara Volker back in the next couple of weeks and talking about the reasons you should, implement some of these accessibility features. And it's things that can help everyone. It's like my son pointed out that, you can set up Fortnite so it actually tells you the direction of the gunfire that's coming in, and you can hear the gun steps, and it'll put a visual indicator on the screen. And that's something that was originally created for the hearing impaired, but it's something that everybody can use. So you should. Over a quarter of the studios don't invest in diversity and inclusion efforts. Those that do report significant success. So this is interesting. This time around, we ask our pool of professionals to gauge how much, if any, time and attention the studio has focused on staff inclusion and diversity. Nearly a quarter, 24%, said their studio had invested at least a moderate amount, but the largest share, 28%, said their studio hadn't focused any time or attention to such initiative. And their questions are so vague here. It's like you don't even really get an idea of what they mean. It's like, last year, to what extent has your studio focused on staff inclusion and diversity? A great deal, a lot, a moderate amount, a little, none at all. How the fuck do you quantify that? So 18% have invested a great deal. 24 have done a moderate amount. Yeah, that's hard to quantify. So since when we followed up asking those who did see such investments tell us how effective they were, almost 96% said they were at least slightly successful. Okay, but what does that mean?
It kind of worked. It kind of worked.
So some of the responses on the biggest issues facing studios which invest in diversity and inclusion initiative says, one of them was, quote, the staff who aren't CIS white males seem to be disproportionately A, contract employees, or B, affected by layoffs. On paper, our numbers are better now than a few years ago, but I'm not sure if retention is going well. Another one says, quote, due to the candidate pools available for us, if we're not consistently diligent at pushing forward diversity candidates, we go from being diverse to a pile of white dudes in 3 months if we don't pay attention. I can see that. Another one says, quote, prioritizing gender or racial diversity over craft skills simply to fill an unspoken quota or improve industry public perception is rarely in the best interest of a development team, especially for hard to fill positions. That being said, we are an equal opportunity studio and strive to promote acceptance. We strive to promote it. We're just like not gonna, focus on it at all. All right, so wait, there's Hitoshi has a question here. It says, I always thought Twitter was the place where the industry is more prevalent. Twitter is the place where the industry is most prevalent, if you mean prevalent in the fact that they're all there. It is, but that's the problem. That whole signal to noise ratio is so out of whack. And he goes on, says Facebook ads are good for indie devs. Yes, they are. They very much are. I mean, they're not used as much. You still have a lot of players out there if you target your ads correctly. And there's all kinds of videos on how to do this. But say you're making a platformer. And we'll do the precision platformer now that I like using that since, I learned that Mario can jump 7 steps. If you're making a platformer and you start targeting players who are fans of other platformers, so you want to target the fans of, Dead Cells or Celeste or whatever, the most popular one out the last couple of years has been, that is going to bring you more targeted viewers to your game than going out there and just putting shit on Twitter with a hashtag, because those are, it's like everything. It's a little bit of it's common sense. If you're paying Facebook to do it, they're going to give you a little more visibility than you normally get, and that's got its own drawbacks and concerns. But the reality is that's what works. So if you're an indie dev, yes, I would highly recommend going out and, like I said, you don't have to spend a bunch of money, $5 a day. Do an ad, target the fans of, the titles that are similar to yours, and then point them to your Discord server or point them to your Steam page, your wish list. And yes, I guarantee you'll see a growth in your community.
That Ryan Manning says social media feels like trying to give a speech at a daycare full of ADHD toddlers. I'd rather hire someone to manage my social media.
We can do that. It is, but it's one of those things that it's all about consistency. And so it depends on who your target is. If your target is B2B, it's going to be a little tougher to figure out where you need to target it. But if you're targeting consumers, it's literally something I would call a no-brainer, to get in there and do it. And it's like I said, it's not difficult. I've learned to do it in the last 2 years. Thank you, Elsa. She's completely bored by this conversation, apparently.
Snoring.
So yeah, she's out like a light. Yeah, I mean, it is. Like I said, don't go and drop, hundreds of dollars into it, but give it a try, $5 a day, and see, what sort of difference it makes. There's so many people on Twitter that it's like a non-ending flow of content. Mr. Cookie, there is a talk on how to manage and create an active Discord community. If you go to the podcast, we've done like 3 or 4 of them, which is, what's our podcast, Andy?
Anchor. Anchor.fm/indie game business.
Yeah, we've had several community managers and folks on talking about it. So nearly half of game makers are still working over 40 hours a week. Okay, can I say that that's slower than I thought it would be? It's still a lot. Well, I mean, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. So 23% are working 36 to 40 hours a week, 20% are 41 to 45, 12% 46 to 50. And then it drops down 51 to 50 hours, 55 hours a week is 5%, 56 to 60 is 3%, more than 60 hours a week is 4%. My question is, how skewed is the data? Because some of these look like they went to hobbyists versus true studios. Because you got 17% that say they're working 0 to 20 hours per week. I honestly thought it would be higher than that in terms of the people working 50, 60 hour weeks, 70 hour weeks. Yeah, and then the next one flows right into it. Self-pressure is still a game maker's most common reason for overwork.
Wow.
So 9%. So the question is, what is the maximum number of hours per week you've worked during a single week in the last 12 months? 0 to 20 is 9%. The numbers are fairly low until you start getting up into 9% have worked 40-hour weeks, 11% have worked 45, 14% have reached 50 hours a week, 9% 55, 13% 60 hours a week. See, these are the numbers I expected. 7% 60% 70 hours a week, 3% 75, 5% have worked 80 hours a week, 2% have worked 85, 4% have worked 90-hour weeks. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, that's not smart.
And then you got people like Rockstar bragging because they were working 110 hours a week. What were the reasons you believe caused you to work these maximum hours a week? I don't consider the amount of time I work to be excessive, 40%. But can we get that broken down into who said that? I mean, if it's the whatever 20, 29, 35% that worked.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know, like,
hours a week.
It would be nice to know the like, because they did the survey of, you know, how long you've been in the game industry. It'd be nice to see, like, the people that have worked in the game industry 1 to 2 years or 1 to 3 years, you know, what their it would be nice to see a more detailed breakdown.
Yeah, I want to know what this breakdown is per column. So 40% said they don't consider the amount of time I work to be excessive. 14% said management pressure. It was made clear we needed to work those hours. 9% peer pressure. Everyone else was working these hours. 59% self-pressure. I was personally working hard and felt I needed or wanted to, but theoretically, couldn't you put some of that 59% into peer pressure and management pressure? I don't know. I just did 9%.
That's a lot of people. 9% of 4,000. Oh, why'd you work so much? Oh.
The majority of game makers think game devs should unionize. Few think they will. Okay, again, I spoke about this last night when I went to the local game dev meeting at the university, and it's just one of those things that game developers have unionized in a lot of countries. They just haven't unionized here, and I agree. I don't think they will either. Most devs aren't selling games on Switch, and many make most of their money on PC. So approximately what percentage of your revenue do you receive from the following platform? Less than 10% said 78% said they generate some revenue from Switch. Am I reading this right? I don't know how to read that graph, Andy.
What percentage of your revenue do you receive from the following platforms?
Okay.
So Switch,
right.
78% says Switch.
Well, 78% said less than 10%.
Less than 10%.
Switch.
Oh, okay. I got it.
So you almost have to look at this backwards. 40% said they are getting 76 to 100% from PC, Mac, and Linux. Yeah, the majority of it is still coming from PC games. Then there's the people that have other. I'm not sure what else they were developing for. Maybe that Playdate thing. PC offers devs unmatched direct access to consumer, but Steam is still the most common way of making money. Which PC, Mac video game store do you sell on, and approximately what percentage of revenue comes from each? Epic is still low. Makes sense. They don't have that many titles out there. Steam's the big one. Direct via your own website is 25%. So my question for that, so 25% of the respondents said 76% to 100% of their revenue comes direct via their own website. Are you doing that with Steam keys, I'm assuming? I mean, you don't have to, when you do it like that, you don't necessarily have to pay Steam for it. But anyway, publisher-owned, direct, and Steam were the big ones. All right, so wait, hold on, questions. Toshi says, targeted ads are good for games still kind of early in development. Yeah, Hitoshi. I mean, like I said, run the ads, point them to a Discord server or a Steam wish list where you can start building that community. Justin says, it's true, and Nintendo doing development is kind of a charity. At least that's how it was in the Wii's days. Since the Switch is hitting off really well, they're jumping on board with it. Yeah, I agree. Everybody was just kind of like, okay, the Switch looks kind of cool, but we got burned by that whole Wii U thing, and now, yeah, it's huge. Most devs don't think Steam justifies its 30% cut. No shit. Many suggest 10 to 15% instead. What? Yeah, I can't imagine how this is. How this is surprising at all. What do you think? The question was, what do you think is a justifiable amount of your game's revenue for Steam to take? 7% said 5%, 21% said 10, 25% said 15, and that's I agree, that's a sweet spot. 17% said 20, then 3% said 25, 6% said 30, 1% said more than 30. Steam's going to do what they're going to do. They're going to take what they want to take because they're still the biggest market. But that justification for 30% isn't nearly as strong as it was 5-10 years ago. Do you think the Epic Store will be a long-time commercial success? 40% said yes, 35% said maybe. Only 7% said they don't see it being a success. I think it's going to absolutely be a success. I mean, it's made more traction than anyone else has in the last 20 years. How long? Has it been? How long have we had digital distribution? It was 2004, right? It says, don't forget, there's a thing also between Epic and Steam when it comes to revenue cuts. Yeah. I mean, it's Epic is absolutely making incursions. You look at it this way: if there is any one company in the industry who should have been able to carve out a chunk of Steam's market share by now, it's Amazon. Like the biggest internet retailer in the world, and for 10-15 years they can't get their shit straight to take on Steam. But here comes Epic, and they do it in like a year. And that's one of those things that's like I constantly look at Amazon and just like shake my head. It's like it makes absolutely zero sense why they have not carved out more of the PC market than they have. And what it boils down to is they don't seem to know what the hell they're doing. Epic does. So most game makers aren't confident Google Stadia will succeed. I think that's very justified. 1 in 5 devs think Apple Arcade will succeed, but many are still unsure. I think in terms of the mobile landscape, I think Apple Arcade's got a good shot at it. They're the only ones going and doing exclusive. Google Play has got their initiative as well, but they don't do any exclusives on it. So I think if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Apple Arcade.
I'll be right back.
Well, that's the end of it. That's all of it. And we've gone like way over anyway here. So there's some surprises in here. There's some that aren't really that big a surprise. There's still a lot of people that are very hopeful that VR and AR is going to take off. I don't see. I think it's going to stay where it is right now. I don't see anything coming that's going to make it go, oh my God. If Valve drops the price of their headsets down to something that's more, in that range of the Oculus Go, and they do that with, VR, the Half-Life VR game, then yeah, they could jump and they could sell a lot. But it's like, you want to play VR, Alex, you're dropping $800 in there. So, let's see. Brian says, has Amazon released a title yet? I know they spun up Game Studio a few years ago. That's just in their release title, but Amazon's been selling digital PC games for 15 years. and they haven't cut into anything that Apple's doing. And yeah, they have released titles. They've released 2 or 3, I believe, but none of them have actually, taken off. And they've all been like shuttered. They haven't done anything. Kyron Cole says, I hope Stadia succeeds. Seems like it's a cool idea to cut out the hardware rat race. I'll be surprised if we're still talking about Stadia 6 months to a year from now, because right now it is looking like everything that we've all predicted when they announced it at GDC last year is true. They want you to pay a lot of money for hardware that's not finished and access to games that you already own that you actually have to buy again. So, Trigger says, yeah, Amazon profits off their services and tools. And yes, all right, so that part, when you talk about how much of the game industry is run by Amazon Web Services, yeah, they got that part down pat. They can absolutely sell their web services and things like that, but they can't sell games. And absolutely, now we're starting to see, if you saw the news, that Google and YouTube are now going to be hosting the Overwatch League. So now you're having content taken out of Twitch, which Amazon owns, and you're starting to see that slow exodus of Twitch streamers as well. So 50% certain that Stadia will bomb for one reason: lag compensation. Remember, on live, even without getting into the technical stuff and the lag and whatever, you got a content issue there and a price issue. It's just not. There's no reason to buy it. There's no reason to spend $200 on it. That's for sure. It says OnLive is a thing, but Utomic is live with their similar services, and then NVIDIA now is fairly successful. If you already own the game, they let you play it. NVIDIA now is one that we just don't hear a lot about. That's an interesting one, because I think they have the hardware to get it in there and go. Utomic, we got friends over there, but my concern with Utomic is still the same. They don't have any exclusive content. So, if you're going to be investing $5, $10, $15, $20 a month into a service, is it better to do it on Utomic, or is it better to do it on like Microsoft Game Pass? So, yeah, we can carry this conversation on forever, but we are like way over time what we've done here. So just the general plugs, join us on Discord. It's discord.gg/indiegamebusiness. If you don't have the publisher list that we released, it's got over 650 publishers in it. Go to www.thepowellgroup.com/publisher-list, and you can get it. And then we do a webinar once a month on actually how to use it. So how you can take that list and just go ahead and start contacting all these publishers yourself. But yeah, that's it. Indy's run off, and so
I'm here. Thank you guys so much. No, I had to go pee. That's all good. All right. Discord.gg/indiegamebusiness. Also Amazon, or what is it? Anchor.fm/indiegamebusiness. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you Friday. We got the Tracey brothers.
Y'all take care.
Peace.